Chapter 1. Amano Megumi. You are listening at FameTV.info. It was a normal summer, boring even. After the trip with her friends, Amano found herself focusing on her practice. Her curvaceous, mind-numbingly voracious body sweated as it reacted to the ever-present cruel heat. Swinging her wooden sword outside the living room, her breasts jiggled at every move and her perky, round bottoms that dug out of her tight hot pants remained a sight to relish. The untamed movement of her breasts pointed to the lack of underwear beneath her tight, off-white tank top, and soon, the sweat stuck to each and every corner of her body. Humph, stupid Ma.Kun. Always studying, always keeping his eyes away. I practice so hard to maintain my figure and he is always like that. Her strikes grew fierce and reckless. In her frustrations, she failed to notice how her beautiful pink nipples could now be seen through her clothes and most skin of her breast stuck to the cloth, creating a skin-like print. Her luxurious black hair remained tied into a ponytail while her swings continued. The muscles of her arms, back and shoulder grew ever so tense when suddenly, a boy appeared above her out of thin air and immediately fell on her body. Bad hump. Ow. Nick slowly opened his eyes as a musky scent assaulted his senses. He wasn't a warrior or an expert. It was just that the scent itself was quite strong and strangely enticing. Taking a deep breath, Nick already knew what he had to do. Gazing at the beautiful, fair-skinned girl pressurized by his body weight, Nick did not take long before his lips already sealed hers. Of course, reeling through pain, Amano in fact, didn't resist the sudden soft sensation and only let herself get indulged in it. It was only when a strange, dangerous entity started moving within her mouth did her senses return. Her eyes snapped open, beautiful, glittering obsidian. Black eyes gazed at the figure of a man that now sealed her lips while she failed to move her hands. A strong hand clutched onto her wrists while her breast squished under the bodyweight of the man. No, boy, a youth. A black-haired one, just like her. The only thing different was that his face had a decorative scar at the corner of his right eyebrow while his face was slightly more defined and angular than Ma.Kun. But she didn't have the time to think things through. She couldn't speak and the only way she could breathe even after getting her lips sealed for so long was due to breathing through her nose. Her heart panicked as she felt her mind losing to the pleasure raging within her mouth. Is this it? I wish to save my first time for Ma.Kun, but am I going to get forced? Mom. I am scared. Droplets of tear trickled down from the corner of her eyes when suddenly, she felt her entire tongue getting wrapped up by this mad person. Yes. She would have immediately smacked him with her sword but what is this inhumane strength? Her hands remained forced on the ground. Amano, at this moment, dearly wished that her mother hadn't gone off with father for a short vacation. She dearly wished that Ma.Kun was here to protect her. But deep down, didn't she know that Ma.Kun simply doesn't have the strength. He was weaker than herself. If she was overpowered, how could Ma.Kun even hope of protecting her? Image of a kind bespectacled boy flashed past her eyes while suddenly, she felt the pair of soft lips sealing her lift up. Finally, she gasped for air and looked at the perfectly symmetrical face in front of her eyes. Megumi felt a bit dazed but seeing the tears in her eyes, Nick felt a bang inside his head. Sorry. Apologizing, Nick immediately bit on the left strap of her tank top and tore her through tank top with the sheer force of his jaws. Her heavenly, soaked breasts bounced outwards and immediately packed backwards while Megumi felt her heart growing colder. Is this it? She thought when suddenly, Nick dived down and plucked her left cherry topping accompanied with an erect nubbin in his mouth, sucking ferociously. Ahem. She hated it. Every single moment of what she was going through, she hated it. Megumi admitted that she could easily feel the lascivious stares of her classmates and even some perverted teachers, but her heart already thumped for Ma.Kun. She didn't need anybody else. For his sake and her kendo practice, she strived to keep her body in perfect shape. Through various cosmetics, she kept her skin soft and supple while her body grew alongside her training and leaning towards her mother/s side. Her breasts did not need any special attention as they naturally grew round and perky. But now, those very breasts of her were being played by a complete stranger. She didn't want to admit it, but after a momentary despair, her body started getting hot. It wasn't the sweat or the practice. In fact, deep down, she wished that if she were to be violated, it should have been after she was fresh. Not in her current state. But this made her even hotter. Nefarious thoughts burnt within her mind as her nubile nipple felt a tongue twirling around her soft, pink areolae expertly. Ha please. Don't do this. Stop. I am begging you. Her lips parted yet her words failed to suppress her moans. In fact, they only grew louder. Staring at her for a moment, Nick immediately let go of her breast, allowing Megumi to feel a moment of relief and reluctance, before he once again sealed her lips. His lips, unlike previously, did not go gentle on her mouth. She was being ravished. Her mouth, her breasts and hopefully, her flower. Everything was going to be ravished by this handsome youth who she did not even know, and yet, his actions determined him to be the polar opposite of her crush. Her muscles started to lose their tension under his passionate care while the afternoon sun made Megumi even more tired. Feeling her wrist loosening up, Nick finally backed away and stood up. Under the cruel sun, his figure hidden in a blue t-shirt and a pair of black pants looked like a block of ice. Cool, yet his eyes showed a passionate expression as his eyes properly inspected her body. Once again, Megumi felt the stare passing through her flushed face down to her soft, voluminous breasts and then finally stopping at her crotch. Her hot pants already seemed to show the wet area. Megumi hated this, she hated her own body/s honesty. She hated the fact that her own body willfully surrendered, and now she hated the reaction of her crotch that made her body twitch ever so slightly. My lady. Let /s continue this inside. Nick whispered before he crouched and picked Megumi up with his right arm supporting her upper back and simultaneously squishing her right breast, much to Megumi/s physical ecstasy, his left hand meanwhile easily dug into her plump butt. Even the fabric of her hot pants was extremely soft, making the experience all the more enjoyable for Megumi. Although, her butt was supposed to get groped in such a dirty and hot manner by Ma.Kun, she suddenly had to think if he was actually courageous enough to do so. Her Ma.Kun would simply turn his eyes if she tried to lean her body whenever they traveled on public transport. Was she really that off-putting? No, a silent thought escaped her mind. The new realms of carnal pleasure played and twisted her thoughts cruelly. All her pent-up physical frustration alongside the mental pressure of getting ignored by the simple boy who had no redeeming quality other than his cooking, and that combined with the fact that she was currently being forced upon and her body simply accepted such a terrible situation, easily made Megumi angry at the boy she placed all her hopes and desires upon. The firm hands pinching the base of her soft butt and the side of her bust made her thoughts afloat further. She wished to see Ma.Kun in the eyes and confess all her past feelings. Then, she wished to unleash all of her untold rage on the boy that seemed nothing but a disappointment. Instead of thinking his flustered expression cute, Megumi, at this moment started to hate it and clenched her jaws while tears streamed down her face once again. Maybe, deep down, she knew that it wasn't Ma.Kun/s fault. She was the one who developed the crush on the boy selfishly. She simply wanted to vent her frustration on someone, but Megumi couldn't bring herself to unleash her rage through her mouth after that very mouth had tasted the carnal pleasure the youth could bring her. Heave.ho. Suddenly, her back felt the comfort of her couch and she looked around only to realize that they were already in the living room. It a bit uncomfortable on the couch, so please bear with me. I make you feel good, too. Whispered the youth as Megumi failed to comprehend the meaning of his words. With her back supported by the couch, the youth knelt on his knees and gently placed his warm hands on her knees, spreading them apart to reveal the striking camel toe that soaked her entire garment. Her tight hot pants dug into her meaty thighs, truly a sight to relish. Readjusting her calves on her shoulders, Nick finally moved further and placed his lips on her meaty entrance still covered by her soft pants. The musky scent overflowed and slowly, Nick placed his thumbs on the either side of her fleshy door that formed her camel toe before stretching them apart. Almost instantly, the whole living room was saturated by the musky scent so that even Megumi was finally aware of her own smell. Embarrassment filled her head, but before she could muster any physical energy to stop, Nick's lips suddenly kissed her lower lips through the fabric. Instantly, a shock passed up through her spine into her brain. Her senses started to get dull and yet, she could distinctively feel his touch and his lips slowly descending deep into her psychology. If she could see her face through a mirror, Megumi reckoned that she would look anything but the desirable and gentle girl that attracted eyes of many save for one. She felt that her expression would have already turned ugly. After all, such ugly acts can never make any girl look beautiful, right? Meanwhile, under the soft caress and gentle kisses on the slowly erecting nub above her slit, Nick invoked her fluids to slid down her seal as his hands finally moved from the waist of her crotch to her hips and pulled her hot pants in one swift motion. Part of her underwear got stuck at her butt as she sat comfortably on the couch, but the front part of her pants was successfully pulled down, finally exposing her lower flower alongside the developing pubes right above the slick slit. No. This time, Megumi finally mustered enough energy, both mental and physical, to stop any further continuation. Alas, even when her hands gripped on his head, trying to push his face away while her scent only grew, she couldn't overpower him. Strangely, the youth who looked similar to her in age was able to stay unimpressed by her arm strength as his head still moved forward, despite her grueling efforts. His thumb still stretched her fleshy mounds that revealed the soft pink, glistening flower, and his lips did reach her labia, licking her entrance before tasting her nectar, something Megumi found incredibly embarrassing once again. Licking his lips, Nick looked up. His face appreciatively gazed at her dazzled eyes and the flush on her cheeks so dark that they could rival a ripe tomato. Her lips slightly apart as the bridge of thick, luscious saliva connected them. Please. Stop. Seeing tears forming in the corner of her eyes once again, Nick sighed in his heart. Even though he felt bad, he had things to do. And he was sure deep down that once Megumi finally felt how his own member felt, the guilt that caused these tears would vanish. If he could, he wouldn't want to snatch someone else / woman, but extreme situations call for extreme measure. Miss, I don't know your name. But believe me, I would genuinely like to know such a beautiful woman. For now, please oase yourself in pleasure. Assuring, Nick finally placed his mouth on her parting vagina as his tongue stretched forth, sticking into her tight, warm walls. The sweet, gushing nectar finally filled his mouth as he kept digging and feeling each of nook and corners present. Suddenly, Megumi moan grew as his tongue grazed past a specific spot. No. Please she. Stop. HNNNGGGH. A pleased groan erupted as the palms that kept pushing his head suddenly pulled him in. Taking note of the spot, Nick continued while striking the weak spot occasionally, creating a symphony of pleasured moans and groans to erupt out of her throat. She couldn't stop him, she couldn't overpower him, and she couldn't escape his clutches. Though, she genuinely felt horrible, all she could do was pull in Nick's face even harder to scratch the unscratchable itch that bothered her since the start of her puberty. Her thighs gradualism enclosed around his neck and head, making his face buried in the heavenly scent that wafted out of her desirable virgin pussy while his cheeks got squished by her meaty thighs. Suddenly, much to Megumi_'s reluctance, the soft lips slowly parted from her twitching pussy as his tongue stretched out before covering her lewd, moist entrance. Her twitching mounds and the erect clit got tasted in one swoop. Hi! A strange sound different from her previous moans erupted. She tried keeping her voice low, but the sudden shake made it harder to control. Her thighs tightened further as her body arched up. Looking at the reaction, Nick smiled before sealing her lower lips once again. His tongue stretched out, anticipated the gushing nectar while gently caressing her walls, pushing Megumi further. And there it was. Megumi_'s arms suddenly gained strength, as she surprisingly pulled Nick_'s face into her pussy even harder. Her inner walls tingled as she experienced a deep, mind-numbing orgasm. A feeling she had never experienced before, discrediting her Ma.Kun further in her mind. A thin trail of healthy nectar dripped down Nick_'s chin as he stood up and moved his face towards Megumi_'s open mouth. Her body already lost all its strength and now, even her tongue did not have enough energy to remain inside her mouth. "You look beautiful." Murmuring, he placed his lips on hers once again, making Megumi finally taste how sweet and tender she actually was. Nick_'s hands squeezed her soft, malleable breasts as her erect nubbin felt sensitive to air. I_ll only sting a little. This time, Megumi clearly understood Nick_'s meaning, regardless of her situation, she understood him. Sealing her lips to attract her focus once again, Nick used his other hand to finally unbuckle his belt and lower his pants. Even though his own large rod, something, Megumi failed to see, was quite huge for a first-timer, not to mention the fact that his dong wasn't even lubricated. Nick felt that it was extremely wrong to force himself upon a girl so sweet-looking and hard-working. After all, he interrupted her training session. He also couldn't make her use her mouth to lubricate his dong as this was their first time. He was experienced in providing oral satisfaction without any hesitation, so he did. But that doesn't mean that he has to force his preferences, too. This action was needed for his survival. Rubbing his exposed tip and grinding his rod against her wet slick, Nick finally positioned his penis against the desired hole. "Just focus on the kiss, alright. You_ll feel good soon enough." Nick assured and whispered into her ears once again as he finally pushed his tip inside, bypassing the entrance before feeling the thin layer of obstruction. Feeling her clearly intact hymen, Nick was even more surprised. Most of the athletes, like the woman in front of him, already have broken seals due to their highly intensive physical exercises. Megumi had the body of a strong athlete, but her vagina remained innocent. Finally, giving a hard push, Nick barely broke through her seal while Megumi_'s pain shout was muffled by his tender, exceptionally gentle kiss, unlike his previous passionate one. As half of his shaft entered deep within her, soft pinkish light glowed from his little member before Megumi felt her pain receding at a breakneck pace while her innards only grew more passionate, warm and constricted. The blood seeping out of the thin space failed to affect her as Megumi gave one final thought to her crush before the sudden bout of pleasure racked her mind numb. Sorry, Ma.Kun. I am a bad girl. Her legs bucked up as Nick_'s member was fully accommodated, his balls touching her puckered up, soft and fleshy entrance of her butthole while his veiny glory throbbed deep within her, bypassing her G-spot before smacking at the entrance of her womb. Meanwhile, her tongue lost all its energy, depending on Nick_'s gentle care while her hands that loosely hung around her neck started to move downwards his body, her nails trailing his well-defined muscles before hugging her waist tightly. GGNNNNNNGH. A moan chortled during their passionate kiss as Nick slowly moved his hips. Even though his skill managed to subside the pain, that didn't backslash t mean that his actions won backslash t further pain her. No matter what he did, this was Megumi backslash s first time, and certain physical trauma would remain for a few days before she gradually accepts the shape of his penis. His left hand gently cupped her right breast while his right hand pinched her left nipple. Megumi still couldn't backslash t believe that she had finally become a woman. She had indeed watched many documentaries in private, and of course, she had also seen her ma.kun naked, only once. Only that peek allowed her to understand that there was a difference between the physical structure of a professional and a normal boy that she loved. But at that point in time, she didn't backslash t care much. As long as she happily married him, she would be satisfied. But right now, her pussy stretched to its limit, so much so, that she was afraid that her innards would tear up, made her even hotter. Her hot and tender flesh gripped onto Nick backslash s penis, affecting his speed. With a grunt, he moved even swiftly, putting his back into each of his thrusts while Megumi backslash s wildly bucking legs slowly locked upon his hips, wanting to keep him inside, slowly grinding his cock through the sheer intensity of her slick walls. Finally, Nick broke the kiss and whispered as he gazed at Megumi. Please haha hnngh. Don backslash t look. Her eyes immediately glazed as her hands moved to her rescue, covering her face with her arms. Not feeling offense in the slightest, Nick knew that sex for the first time could be extremely emotional for a woman. Not to mention that Megumi did not consent for their sexual intercourse. Understanding her dilemma, Nick threw away the thought of leaving a trail of hickeys down her collarbone and then sucking onto her sweet delicious tits before he removed his hands from her breast and clutched her arms, slowly removing the cover and gazing into her tear-filled eyes. You aren't backslash t dirty, miss. You look extremely beautiful. Your cheeks are rosy that every man would want to pluck them, while your eyes are comparable to Thai Starry Night. Not to mention your sexy nose and the lips that would drive any sane man insane. Please don backslash t cover your face. Slowly descending, Nick stopped his lips right above Megumi backslash s. His warm, heavy breaths assaulted her face, numbing her senses while his words shook her heart. Backslash I am beautiful. No, I am a dirty woman. I don backslash t know you, and yet, I am enjoying something that I should be hating, despising, even. But backslash slightly lifting her head, Megumi backslash s lips finally touched Nick backslash s as she lost herself to the emotions that turned her body even more sensitive. Steadily, Nick backslash s thrust grew fierce while the sound of his flesh hitting resounded within the living room. Suddenly, Megumi backslash s eyes snapped open, her hand started to pat his back fiercely while her pussy clenched so tightly that even an experienced guy like Nick had to hold on to his dear life in this wild ride. With extreme pressure, suddenly, Megumi lost most of her strength, her body turned limp while a rushing river affected Nick backslash s tip before her nectar started to leak out. The sudden softening of her pussy finally made Nick groan one last time as his semen exploded deep within her. Disregarding any thoughts of getting her pregnant, Nick lodged his member deep into her walls, pushing her womb as Megumi cried once again. Her body felt as if it was lit on fire. Nothing felt so horribly comforting to the young maiden. Not even the sweets prepared by her ma.kun felt discomforting. With her consciousness drifting, Nick gave her a kiss on the forehead before whispering a soft thank you. Backslash ah. That backslash s right, backslash Megumi finally understood the difference between the man in front of her and the boy she liked. If it was ma.kun that dumped his virile load deep within her, turning her into an accomplished woman, his words would solely contain an apology, not the appreciation that the man showed. Do you accept Nick Farron as your partner? Backslash whatever, I don't backslash t care anymore, backslash she finally lost her consciousness as her pussy blissfully leaked the off-white spunk that mixed with her virgin blood and her sweet nectar. Meanwhile, Nick finally took out his sloppy member as he looked back at Megumi, only to find her glowing brightly. Thank God, it worked, pumping his imaginary fists, a green display appeared in front of his vision. Congratulations, Nick Farron. You survived the test and have officially become the last surviving member of the Incubus Society. The temporary skills will now turn permanent. Name: Nick Farron. Age: 19. Affiliation: Incubus Society STR 2 AGL 2 Vit 2 CHM 2 Luck 2 Skills: Virgin Lover, exclusive, to care for every virgin is the task of the Incubus Master. This skill relieves the user /s partner from the pain of going through sexual intercourse for the first time, making the experience pleasurable and memorable for both mates. This skills only affect the virgins, disregarding their hymen. Baby Hater, exclusive, as an aspiring incubus, the user should strive for coming deep within their women and satisfying them without impregnating them and creating obstacles for their ambitions. After all, no unsuccessful woman would simply want a bun in their oven if they aren't /T forced. This skill allows you to control the sperm count, letting you come without any fears of cradling a child instead of a pair of breasts. Female Hunter, LVL1. A developing skill that increases the charm, CHM, of the user. No incubus is a dirty old man or a fatty scum. An incubus should look dignified even when mating with the Cerberus bitch. Look good and feel good. NXT LVL 1 Skill Point. Main Quest. Survive, 10D. You have been thrown into a new world. Survive. Note that the system doesn't /T feel sorry if the host is transported right in front of a man-eating lion. It is your own bad luck, feel its consequences yourself. Affiliation Quest. Turn 10 women into your fold. Time limit equal to the main quest. Partners. Amano Megumi, human. As the golden light receded, Megumi was once again revealed as Nick could feel a special connection with her. After taking a moment to calm down, he finally looked around and to his relief, he only needed to clean the mess he made on couch. Amano Megumi, huh? He finally muttered the name of the woman that allowed him to pass the test of the long-lost inheritance. I /LL remember you. Even though I have restricted your freedom, I promise that I /LL make up to you. Nick spoke without any hint of remorse. He didn't /T hate himself for forcing himself on others. He wasn't /T a hypocrite. He, in fact, felt good. When he came deep within her, he felt satisfied, and this is the reason he sought the incubus inheritance for so long. He wanted to claim a lot of women. Whether they be someone else /s daughter, wife or sister. Even a hot grandma would do. He was a scum. But at least, he knew that he was a scum. Check out Amano Megumi at https://mangadex.org/title/18221/amano.megumi.wa.suki.daraki/covers. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.